storm-clad hills and bogland bleak and brown, their aged thorns cluster round a gently sloping lea, while nestling in the shade there stands the school of Ballinagree. Since last I sat within its walls, now many a year has rolled, and up the rugged road of life I'm weary, grown and old. Thus fancy often makes me feel the trail of old-time glee, and bears me back to boyhood and the school of Ballinagree. The boys, the benches and the books I see in every dream, and memories sweet of playground pranks before my vision clean. Joan Buckley's shop, the taws and tops, the old white thorn tree, beneath whose shade we planned and played the school of Ballinagree. One dear spot I ne'er forgot, the school of Ballinagree.
What's our job? Well, this morning I think we'll start off with a history lesson. And what we talk about is the history of Ballinagree, about our own village and about our own town lands. And what we'll go on about is what life was like in Ballinagree probably 100 years ago. Would you like that?
Yes.
That's great. Now, what did you notice going through Ballinagree, or through the village there with the last few days? Well, last week, actually. Denise?
Silage machinery.
Silage machinery, that's right.
No doubt these ladies are inspecting the quality of the silage. Here we see it being picked up and blown into a trailer. This harvester is quite capable of harvesting up to 50 acres of silage in one day. I think this is the latest arrival to the O'Sullivan family. Here we see the precision chopped silage being pushed into the pit by Shawnee McSullivan.
And was there silage there always?
No.
We'd say 100 years ago. Were the farmers here in Ballinagree cutting silage?
No.
And what did they feed their animals with?
Hay.
Mihal?
Hay.
They fed the animals with
Hay.
And how did they cut the hay, Mihal?
With a side.
With a
Scythe.
With a scythe. And that was very hard work.
This would have been a typical scene on an Irish farm 50 or 60 or maybe 70 years ago. Here Jerry is cutting a swat of hay.
Now, is there any other crop or any other work going on this part of the year?
Turf.
What are we into?
Turf.
What about the turf? What are they doing to the turf, Shane?
They're cut.
Cutting the turf. And who can tell me what they cut the turf with? What do you call the implement that they used cutting the turf?
The slan.
Fiona?
The slan.
The shlan. The shlan. And did you ever see anyone cutting turf with a shlan?
Yeah. Yes.
You did? Hands up those who saw people cutting turf with a shlan. Again, very, very hard work.
Not see too often these days. It is, in olden times, it was called a mehel. That's where a number of people, of neighbours, came together to cut the turf in the bog. They helped each other.
I'm sitting watching the coal fires burning, my heart and thoughts, they are far from here. In fancy's wings, they are returning to where Cork's dear old peaks appear. There is something here on the shelf before me, and oh, what rapture my heart it brings. What a flood of memory it brings o'er me, a sod of turf from the Ballinagree hills.
Again, this scene is later on when the turf is drier. It's being footed. Because when the turf was standing, as you can see it in the creek oaks there now by John Joe Kelleher, it dried.
That weak devotion I took from home as a souvenir, but little I knew that beyond the ocean it would one day tear. And could I stop my tears from flowing at the thought of Ireland's vales and hills? And would I stop my thoughts from going in fancy back to those Barbrook hills?
The children are enjoying the homemade scones. No doubt they've worked up a fine appetite in the clear mountain air.
Old hills in your bleak, majestic splendor, you are far more dear to me. Your memory awakens thoughts most tender than all the beauty that here I see.
Now this is the modern way of cutting turf, what we call machine turf, where large buckets of bog stuff are taken and put into the turf machine. There it is mixed up, the top stuff and the bottom black stuff, it's mixed together and it's pumped out through the back of the turf machine. This is called sausage turf, and it dries much more easily than the Schlan turf. And the machine took most of the hard work out of turf cutting.
Another lesson we had a few days ago, we were talking about something that brought about big changes in life in Ballinagree and in our rural areas. Anna? Or Patsy?
Electricity.
The electricity, or what do we call it for short?
Yes.
The
ESP.
ESP. No, so we talk about light. And the very first form of light that was in every house came from the fire. And it was fairly dim. But to add to that, the first light they had was a splinter of bogdeal, kept dry, and it was lit. And if there was anything important happening in the house, like a game of cards, a child usually got the job of holding the splinter lighting. Now after that came the candle. That was the best light that was available in any place, was a candle. And that was made from cow's fat and a wick put through it. The candle was held in a sconce. So when you wanted to go to bed, or wherever you wanted to go, you carried the candle with you. And it gave a very, very poor light. Now next came the single burner oil lamp. You see, here you had a little tank which held the paraffin oil, and down into the paraffin oil with this piece, it looked like cloth. It's a wick, it was called. So when you wanted to light it, you took off the globe and lit the wick. Put back on the globe again, and This lamp now would be hanging on the wall. There'd be nail driven in the wall, and it'd be hanging on the wall. All right? Now it only gave off fairly poor light as well. So later on, somebody came and got the idea of having a double burner with 2 wicks in it. That gave a good bit more light. And to add to the light, they put a mirror on the back, and the light reflected out from that. The only fault, I suppose, there was with the 2-burner lamp was that it burned more oil than the first one. Here we have the storm lamp. And the name storm would suggest to you that it could be taken out. It was for outdoor use. If a person had to go out by night or visit a neighbour's house, they took the storm lamp with them. That's because to stay lighting outside when the wind was blowing and when the rain was blowing, or it was raining. Again, they were a single burner. They burned paraffin oil, and they gave a poorish light by today's standards. Now, a very important little lamp in every house was the sacred hat lamp. But things began to improve, and next came the tilly lamp, and that was a big improvement. They appeared on the scene, I suppose, in the early 50s. The oil was put in here, and the lamp was pumped up. And there was a gadget put on, this vaporizing bar, as it was called, vaporizer, as it was called here, dipped in methylated spirit. It was left lighting for about 2 minutes. And then you turned on the oil and it lit. They gave great light, but they weren't very suitable to take out in the yard, because that place here on top was red hot, and the globe that was around here would be hot as well. And if a drop of cold water hit the globe when it was hot, what happened? Red. So you had nothing. You had crossroad dancing. Crossroad dancing. Now most of you, or hardly any of you, have ever seen crossroad dancing. But in my young days, there was crossroad dancing in many places on Sunday evenings, and maybe the odd weeknight as well. Now there was crossroad dancing down at Coupling Barn. Or do you know where John Coakley's living?
Yeah.
The road where Clare Square.
Yeah.
There was a platform, as it was called, and people gathered on a Sunday evening and a Sunday night, and there they danced away on the cement floor. Even before that, they danced maybe in a field, a dry field on a Sunday evening. And that crossroad dancing are platforms, as they were called. Any other recreation that the people had? Yeah?
Bowling.
Bowling. And what is bowling?
I had a bowling loose in your hand in the road and throw it.
And throw it. And what is a bowling?
And round. A very hard ball. Small.
Like small rubber ball?
No.
And what is it made from?
Steel.
Yeah, it's a round ball of iron. Can anyone tell me what weight it would be?
28 ounce.
28 ounces. 28 ounces. And most of you have seen bowling, have you?
Yeah.
And what is called a game of bowling?
Score.
Huh?
Score.
James?
Score.
A score. And someday we'll see a score. We'll all go to look at a score.
Playing is one of the traditional sports or pastimes in Ballinagree. Here we see a number of people preparing to throw a score. They're exchanging a few pounds. With that we call a bet or a wager. A coin is usually tossed before a score to see who throws the first shot. Now we see the winner. He is choosing a bowl. It is very hard for us to see the difference. In a bowl, every one of them seems the same to us. They're just a 28-inch or 28-ounce ball of iron, but to the expert, there's a difference.
Go check kids. Hello, check boy. Go on over. Come here. Hello, check kids. Don't do that, Joe boy. Get away up.
Slow it down there, buddy. That's good.
Come on, mate.
Stop it.
Come on, danger, boy.
If it's a good shot, it draws cheers from his supporters. If it's a bad shot, very often it draws cheers from the opposition party.
Watch yourself, mate. Come on, kid.
These are put on the road to guide the person or to show him where to try to hit the road with the bowl. This is called marking the road. The road is marked where each bowl stops.
Check the words.
Check kid.
Beat into the road again. Beat into the road.
Traditionally, bowling was played by men only, but in later years, and particularly here in Ballinagree, women are coming into the bowling scene in a big way. Here we see a few pounds being exchanged again, joy for the winner, and hopefully another day for the loser. Back forward.
What other pastime used they have besides dancing and bowling?
Well, in the winter evenings and the winter nights, people visited each other's houses. That was called scraping. They went from one house to the other, and they had set nights for doing that. There they maybe told each other stories and sang songs, and I suppose very often planned to share a lives for each other. But sadly, a lot of those houses that were well-known scraping houses, as they were called that time, they're in ruins now. All that are left standing, just the bare walls. Can you think of any other big social event besides the Crossroad dancing and the bowling?
Sheep pinning.
Yeah.
Sheep pinning.
The sheep pinning.
Yeah.
And anything else? What else would they do to the sheep besides the sheep pinning?
Shearing.
The sheep shearing. That time, I suppose, neighbours helped each other with the shearing of the sheep. And that led to then, you know, a bit of competition between farmers. You know, your daddy would be anxious that his dogs would be better than Tommy Keller's. And Tommy would like that his dogs would be better than your father's. And your father would like that his dog, some particular dog would be better than Tommy's, and then Jerry Kelleher's dog, and every dog in the townland, or every dog in Ballinagree. So that led to competitions. And that's why we have sheep pinning and sheep shearing as, I mean, they're big national events now.
Right.
Here we see one of Mickey Bradley's dogs rounding up a flock of sheep. Here the dog has parted the two darker sheep away from the others. And now he is easing them in to the pin. The expert makes a task like this look easy. There's no talk and there's no shouting. So this is another task. Shearing the sheep. I suppose modern machinery and particularly electricity has made this job a little bit easier, definitely much faster. Here we see Tommy giving the final touches to the sheep. We see the fleece in one piece on the ground. No wonder should Tommy have been a hairdresser. Now we're going back to the good old days where Tommy has here in his hand a hand shears. Now the difference in speed is obvious, besides the hand shears and the electric one. And they're thankful that they're not sheep. Here Mickey Bradley is showing us how to shear a sheep with the hand shears. Here we see Zina McCullough, who was well known to us in Ballinagree for her ploughing skills, trying her hand at the hand shears. And I think a fine job she is making of it.
How do we know what things looked like long ago?
Well, the only way we have of knowing the way things looked like long ago are any idea?
Old pictures.
Old pictures and old photographs. The very first picture we have here on top is a confirmation day in the parish of Ahine. First of all, you have Bishop Ahern, you have Archdeacon O'Connor from Macroom, you have Father Hagerty, who is a curate here in this parish, Father Dwyer, and you have two more priests from the neighbouring parishes. Next we have confirmation in Ballinagree. It will be going back, I think, to about 1956 or 1957. The only one I can recognise is Peggy Lynch. Next we have three well-known ball players from Ballinagree. Well, one is from Dunamore. In the centre we have Con O'Connor, one of the famous Connor brothers, who was known for bowling. To the right you have the late Cara, as he was lovingly known, or Johnny McCarthy, and to the left you have Kirby O'Connor from Dunamore. Next is a photo of a class group from Ballinagree School. I think the year would be 1967. Beyond that we have a complete school group, which would be sometime around the same time, I think 1968 or 9. The next photograph is one class, the two teachers in the school. The two boys are to the left is Michael Sullivan and Aganaha. To the right is Derry Kelleher, Carrick Thomas, Johnny Sullivan, Carrigulla, and Louise Lynch, Horsemount.
Peter Looney, Ballinagree. George Kelleher, Ballinagree. Jimmy Sheehan, Ballinagree. Jamie Kelleher, Connopog. Dennis Tuhig, Ballinagree. Paddy Lucy, Carrick Thomas. John Coughlin, Carrigulla. Jackie Kelleher, Musher. Dan Lee Han, Carrigulla. Jerry Connors, Jerry Darby, Carrigulla. Johnny Hargan, Ballinagree. John Kelleher, Knopog. Christy Creedon, Horsemount. Henry Kelleher, Musher. Billy Wiseman, Ballinagree. Paddy Looney, Ballinagree. Mickey Connors, Ballinagree. Dan Mike Sullivan, Carrigulla. Jerry Hargan, Ballinagree. Dan Looney, Lacknahackney. Michael Tommy Conopog. Tom Welsh, the master. Moncroom. Tim Lehan, Ballinagree. Mikey Hargan, Ballinagree, brother to the ploughman. Hughie Murphy, Carrigilla. Connie Healy, Carrick Thomas. Tommy Healy, Carrick Thomas. Michael Coughlin, Carrigilla. Michael Hargan, Horsemount. Paddy Buckley, Carrigilla. Padlo Buckley, where's called. Joram Duggan, Ballinagree. Johnny Murphy, Horsemount. Thomas Kelleher, Thomas Daly, Lacknahackney. Eugene Sullivan, Bob Andy, where's called. Anigane. Johnny Burns, Carrigilla. Patsy Twemere, Horsemount. Peter McNamara, Doinians. Robert Kelleher, Musherra. Jerry Connors, Ballinagree. Stephen Day, Horsemount.
How did the farmers long ago manage without tractors?
Well, John, there were no tractors there 90 or 100 years ago. But in every farm, there was a pair of horses. 2 horses were called a pair of horses. And those horses were used for ploughing and harrowing, cutting the hay, drying in the hay. All the work on the farm was done with horses. And I'm sure some of you have seen horses ploughing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we had our own famous ploughman here in Ballinagree. Who was that?
Jerry Horgan.
Jerry Horgan. And we have a famous ploughman here as it is.
J.J. Delaney.
Question? Noreen, were there any cars?
Were there any cars there long ago?
No, Noreen, there was no more the cars. So when people wanted to go from one place to another, they travelled by horse and cart. And nearly every family had a special type of a cart for going to Mass on Sunday. They were called a trap. A trap. They had light wheels and there were springs on them. So they were very nice and comfortable to go to Mass. And they also had sidecars.
How did they manage for bread, meat and butter?
Well, first of all, Aidan, the butter was made at home. And butter was made in a round wooden barrel that was called a butter churn. Every farmer made their own butter. They kept what they needed for their own use and they sold the rest. As for meat, there was no such thing as going to the shop and buying meat or black pudding or sausages. Every farmer killed a pig or a cow of their own and cured it, and they had their own meat at home. And bread was baked at home. There was no such thing as a sliced pan, or there was no such thing as a delivery van like we see now coming to the shops. The bread was baked at home, and the woman of the house made bread in a utensil called a bastable.
Now, I have 2 cups of white flour in there now. And I put 2 more brown. Maybe 2.5. It's a good measure. And now a bit of white. Teaspoon of bread soda. Teaspoon of salt. I'll get a little dash of sugar for the small bit of sugar to make it a bit nice. Bit of salt, sugar. Mix them all in up together first. Then I pour my buttermilk in. Make it well in the centre. Have to push it all, gather it all together until it is tough. No wooden spoons here, guys. Gather it all in until it is all together. You knead it away then into a solid round ball. Now it goes to the oven next to the best of it. And knead it out there now again to the size of the oven. I get a knife now to put a cross in it. it goes now again. And the cover now next. Covering out the red holes. Half work if I want there. That's that now. And then can be left there now baking for about 3/4 of an hour.
Was there running water in the houses that time?
No, Kieran. All the water had to be drawn from the well. You know what a well looks like?
Yes.
Sometimes maybe it was brought nearer the house in a stream. It had to be drawn with a bucket. But the first kind of pumps that we, were seen in Ireland are the pumps, the high ones with the handle up and down that way. They'd be very, very old pumps. And that's how the water was lifted up. And remember too that all those wells, some of them were deep as 70 or 80 feet.
The line comes tumbling down from the hills. It fills in both sides with its murmuring rills, and as it flows yonder by Harding's fine mills, what a beautiful curve as its waters. It's the pearl channel, it never runs dry, and for spring it has got a most constant supply. and the district more rich is not under the sky, like the fine pleasant valleys of Larne. When visitors come to this beautiful place, they're anxious for sport or to join in the chase, and the beautiful moorlands abound in grand game, for the huntsman and follower to charm. They have stacks in the haggards and fine reeks of hay, they dress in apparel so costly and gay, they can have for their breakfast bread, butter and tea, and the fine pleasant valleys of Larne. And the banks of that river so fervent and green, there numerous herds of fine cattle are seen, while trout in great numbers do swim in that stream, on a fine summer's eve if you saw them. There are hedges and groves there affording fine shades, fine districts for roving and the rolling cascade, and the boys fond of courting the pretty fair maids in the fine pleasant valleys of Larne. There's a chapel there built on an each sunny slope, where the soil of the best should no dices can cope, and our Catholic curate, the good Father Pope, an excellent clergyman also. Their folk in the Sabbath to mass to repair, at the hear of fine sermon or blend in rich prayer. Thanks be to high heavens, those blessings we spare, and the fine pleasant valleys of Larne. Thanks be to high heavens, those blessings we spare, in the fine pleasant valleys of Ballinagree.
Rambling for roving, for gambling and courting, for trailing the bowling as fast as you will. In all your days roaming, you're fine and so jovial, as the masquerade sportsman the bowl till equal. For